5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, March 15th. Carl, would you start us off with a roll call, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Present.
Ronayne.
Present.
Lunsman.
Present.
Rife.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Rux.
Present.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I understand that we've got no changes to this week's agenda, so I will take a motion to approve the agenda as it's printed.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Ronayne. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote to approve this week's agenda, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval of last 2 weeks ago's meeting, March 1st's minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
The motion from Councilman Johnson and the second from Councilman Lunsman. Does anyone have any changes or additions to the minutes? All right. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Next, we've got open forum, but since no one has signed up to speak here tonight, we'll move right along to our consent calendar, where we have 2 items on the agenda: licenses and requests to serve and consume alcoholic beverages at the Park Pavilion for a wedding. Can I get a motion to approve those 2 issues?
So moved. Second.
A motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Rife for the consent calendar. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. We'll move right along to our new business. The first item that we've got to consider is an ordinance permitting Class 1 electric bicycles on the recreational trails. This would be the possible first reading of this ordinance, and we've got Mark Hoven here to tell us all about that, Director of the Parks and Rec. Mark, thanks for joining us here tonight. What have you got in mind with the electric bicycles?
Sure. Back in 2018, the City of Aberdeen, in conjunction with the Department of Transportation, conducted an intensive study into our trail system off of grant money, and they reviewed a lot of things within our trails and did a master plan, but one of the things they reviewed with our ordinances and the request that we allow electric bikes to be part of our system. The board has studied this. We've had a couple of committee meetings. We've met a couple times as a park board, and there are 3 different versions of electric bikes that are out there. I think it was in your version. The version that the board has recommended is that we go with Class 1 electric bikes, which is simply being when you pedal the bike, you get assistance. When you stop pedaling the bike, you don't get assistance. So it's kind of it helps those that have difficulty pedaling also. The Class 2 bike, we would not want that, because that's kind of runs into the moped type situation where you actually have assistance without pedaling, and it opens up the door for a lot of different motorized vehicles. And then the Class 3 bike is just too fast. It's a 30-mile-an-hour bike that can be on our bike system. So the recommendation was from the park committee to the park board that we change our ordinance and allow Class 1 electric bikes to be a part of our system. They're out there anyway. They're hard to recognize when you see them anyway, and I think it's a good move on our part to allow them. So if there's any questions, I'd be free to answer those.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Rife. And so in looking at these 3 classifications, the Class 2, was there concern or consideration for also including that one, or that just seemed like it was beyond the...
Well, both Sioux Falls and Huron had rejected those in their ordinance. Just the simple fact that you don't have to be pedaling to get assistance, and so it opens up an avenue for all types of motorized things that could come onto our trails. We want to try to prevent that. And so I just think we felt better that the class 1 is where we start, and we have those out there, and they're, again, if you don't pedal, you don't have the assistance. So we just felt better about that as a board and as a committee. So.
Sounds great.
Mark, is the weight of a Class 1 electric bike going to be similar to a standard bicycle?
The weight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. At least the one that we tried out last June, it seemed very similar to what regular bikes are. Really didn't recognize any difference in the bike from an ordinary bike, actually.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I know they look similar. I'm just curious if there were a pedestrian collision involved, if there would be higher damage.
Yeah, and we visited with Sioux Falls and asked them how they've been in this now over a year, and they've had 0 instances with these bikes. They said they have a lot of them on their system, and they haven't had any instances at all.
Good to hear.
So I think we're pretty safe to do this.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hoven? All right, we've got a motion and second. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ruggs,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got an ordinance repealing the age limit for persons fishing at Lake Minnehaha. Possible first reading of this ordinance, and Mark is here to tell us about that as well.
Yeah, this has been kind of ongoing for the past couple of years, but it came more to a head this year. We work very closely with Game and Fish to maintain and stock our lake out at Wiley Park. In the past, they've been able to do some stocking of fish from other lakes, but with the invasive species that have been happening, that's going to probably go away. And so most of the stocking will then come from Blue Dog, I understand. And a lot of that is done through a federal grant program. And part of that is that you can't have any type of restrictions, age, anything else like that, for them to do the stocking. The other side of this comes into play. We get issues from the nursing homes, the schools, clients from Aspire that want to go fishing. And with that age requirement, they can get a pass from the state, from the game wardens, to do a day of free fishing, but they'd still be in violation of the ordinance to be there. So we just feel pretty strongly that this is a good move to release this and to continue the stocking program out at the lake. We would be very much in trouble if we didn't have that stocking going on at Wiley. So I'll answer any questions you might have. There's some representatives from Game and Fish here tonight too. So
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Lunsman and a second from Councilman Johnson. Councilman Johnson.
With the additional fishing pressure on Lake Minnehaha, what will be the difference in number of fish stocked going forward versus past?
go ahead.
You want me to do it from here? Or do you want
Yeah, go here. Okay.
Hi, my name is Mark Erner. I'm the area fisheries supervisor. So we would ramp up our stockings. We started already last year. We've got a real emphasis on the state on these community fisheries. So we're already kind of trying to do more. That's why we ran into this, because we were using more and more products that were likely to come from the hatchery system, and that's very heavily dependent on that federal aid. So yeah, we'll be stocking more. And we do this in a lot of other places around the state. A great example is Family Park in Sioux Falls, and you can probably never have enough fish that something's always biting, but we're gonna try real hard to keep high catch rates and keep it well stocked. So
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. And when you say products, you mean fish, right?
yes.
Got it. Just double checking. Yeah. It seemed like that's the way you were going with it all. Any other questions?
So then, just one last question, then the normal fishing limits of size and all that would still,
Yes, all these waters, if we felt like at some point down the road we couldn't maintain the level, if so many people were fishing it, we could consider regulations, and we would put a regulation on like we do at any other lake. So
Okay.
at this point, the goal would be just a statewide regulations and allow people to fish.
okay.
Thank you very much. Well, we've got our motion and second. All questions seem to have been answered. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the resolution of intent to lease approximately 475 acres of city-owned land to private persons for 5 years, beginning 2021. Possible approval of that resolution and intent for the airport grasslands to private persons and fixing a public hearing to consider final approval of such leases. And here we have Rich to tell us about that. Mr. Krokel, what have you got?
Yep, good evening. Every 5 years, we have 17 irregular shaped tracts of land that we offer up for bid for hay lands. And the acreages range from 65 acres on the largest one to 7 acres for the lowest one. And we met at the airport board meeting and recommend approval for those persons listed on page 28 for the tracts that follow their names.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Ronayne. Has any questions for Rich on these leases? Pretty straightforward. Nice organization. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the resolution of intent to lease the municipal hangar to a private person for 5 years with one renewal option beginning 2021. Possible approval of that resolution of intent to lease the hangar to the private person and fixing a public hearing to consider final approval of that lease. And Rich is still at the podium, so I'm gonna assume you're gonna tell us all about that. Mr. Krokel.
Yep, the city owns one hangar out there, and it's an older World War II era hangar. It measures roughly 60 by 90, and for the last at least 15 years, it's been leased by an FBO. There was some continuing lease options with that because the FBO did put some money into it, renovating it and making it more weather friendly for them. But we did go out for bid. We received the 3 bids, and the airport board recommended offering the bid to the highest bidder.
Sounds good. So we will take a vote on that approval.
Move to approve.
I'll
So
take-
can I, I just
City
want to
Attorney
make sure
Weig
that
has
there will be
something.
one condition to that, the recommendation from the airport board was that the highest bidder be limited in the use of the hangar for non-commercial aviation activities. I had prepared and provided the council with a copy of a draft lease that has that kind of language in that. I've not had a chance to visit with Mr. Hillstead since then, but it's my understanding that he is amenable to those restrictions, that it be used only for non-commercial aviation activities. And so in the resolution, or in the motion to approve a resolution, I would ask that the council specify that it would be for the Darrell Hillstead, if that's the intent.
And Darrell, here to visit with us a little bit. Are you aware of the stipulation that was since added?
We're not gonna do any commercial work out of it. Ryan Energy is gonna be the partner with me, the agriculture sprayer. I would consider that. He's just gonna store his airplane there. He's not gonna spray out of it or nothing.
Okay, so just making sure. It sounds like it was a change to the agreement, and you're familiar and aware of that and accepting of that. Okay, sounds good. We've got a motion from Ronayne. I don't think we got a second because we had shared some additional information.
Do we need to modify the language of the motion?
My motion assumed that it would be in the form presented to the council.
And was seconded, was it?
I don't think we
No.
will.
We
We're
still
waiting
did.
on a second, if someone is willing.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Johnson to accept the arrangement with Darrell Hillestead with the adjustment as indicated in the paperwork and the contract as provided. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Hoven is here to speak to us here today. Rich, if you'd make room at the podium, why don't we just
The biggest question that I have is, Rich talks about the 15 years that has gone on that it's been leased. The hangar actually has been a commercial property for lease going way back. And in 1966, there was a tornado that went through the Aberdeen airport. The city had their own storage facility on the flight line, and there was another private hangar on the flight line. And in 1966, the city decided that we will move our building, and that the gentleman that had the private hangar was not allowed to rebuild on the facility or the lot that he had, because the flight line was determined to be used for commercial operations. And so, I mean, this dates back in the 60s. So that building has been a commercial leased building since way back before that. My question is and you guys know a lot more about these leases and stuff than I do. When we had the opportunity and we called and asked about bidding on this lease, there was a municipal hangar lease agreement that was supposed to be tied to the bid. And this is what Rich told us to go look at. In the recitals on that lease agreement, it says, whereas the tenant desires to lease the hangar for the purpose of renting hangar storage space to the general public. So there are only 3 qualified bidders that can do that at the airport. Whoops, excuse me, I'm sorry. That would be Hangar 9, Quest Aviation, and the Aberdeen Flying Service. So technically, he bid on a lease that he wasn't qualified to bid on, if in fact this is the document that we're supposed to bid and put our bid in according.
Sure. Well, Mark, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. In fact, I spent a fair amount of time kind of running around speaking to different stakeholders in this, because I wasn't clear why this would have come to us, and it kind of feels like we're getting put in the place to do somebody else's dirty work when it's already been something that's been voted upon by the airports board itself. But I spoke to City Attorney Ron Weig about a couple of those things to get clarification, and I think that my understanding is that there isn't a recommendation for no private hangars on the flight line. There's
Just to be clear, there had been a question at some point whether a private hangar was excluded, could not be on the flight line. Rich did confirm with the FAA that there is no such requirement, so we could lease this hangar to a non-commercial aviation activity user.
But you put a lease out that said it was designed for the purpose of renting hangar space to the general public.
You know, so actually I think if you want to switch with Rich, maybe we'll be able to address that here. I think that maybe that's a valuable question to answer, and I think the biggest thing that we've really got on our plates is kind of a matter of making sure that we're doing the right thing and honoring our word in all of these type of things. So, Rich, is this something that's been changed in the process, or how do we get to this point? And
I checked on our FAA grant assurances, of which we have 39 grant assurances that we have to abide by in order to keep receiving federal money. And this is not spelled out, and I called Brian Shook up at the Bismarck office, and he confirmed that.
In terms of what were people's expectations when the bid documents were put out, was there a contract that was associated with it, or was that something that was just the previous contract and it didn't necessarily tie to this?
It was just the previous lease language that we had.
Ron, help us out of this one.
Mayor, there was an understanding. Initially, when it went out, we just simply included a copy of the old lease, basically, just this very similar language to the old lease that had been in place. Again, I want to remind the council that this is city property. You can examine all of the circumstances and decide who you want your tenant to be. And I had made it clear to Mr. Caven that even though that is the language in the lease, we did speak with the airport board about that, about those kinds of things, and they agreed that we should just award it to the highest bidder with the understanding that the lease be changed, lease be modified to not permit commercial aviation activity.
And that language essentially would be protecting the FBOs, was the
Correct.
intent of those types of
Correct.
alterations.
But I
to the
want to make
contract.
it clear, I don't believe that the fact that the invitations to bid went out with a particular lease is binding, that lease can be changed, which it is.
Councilman Ronayne.
Well, okay, sure, but I think maybe, the question, I think, is were the FBOs misled that they were going to be only bidders? I think that's the question.
It says municipal hangar
No,
lease
no, Mark,
agreement.
I'm not talking to you.
No, I'm sorry.
Were they misled? There was no language in there that's saying that they could or couldn't be. It was just the old lease that
And
was
is that your
used.
understanding, Rich, that we didn't say whether they would or would not be?
That's the way I understood it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing in there that said this is limited to fixed base operators.
Councilman Rux.
How
has a
many
question.
hangars do we lease out at the airport?
The city owns one hangar.
Um,
There are numerous hangars out there, but those are all privately owned.
so my question is why do we own a hangar? I mean,
I hate giving you this answer, but we've always owned it.
and my question is as we've looked at property that the city owns around the city, you know, and like you say, it is revenue, but we're talking 13,000 a year. But I'm assuming if they're if they own their own hangar, they're paying property tax on it.
Well, they're paying land leases, yes.
Yeah, land leases and property
Property
taxes.
tax.
So
They aren't technically paying property tax though, right? They're just leasing the. Mark, do you pay property tax on the facility?
We pay property taxes on the buildings that are on the land that we lease.
I mean, because like I say, my whole philosophy is if we don't need to own this, why do we own this? And could we dispose of it? And like I say, I mean,
That's
not
a
have
whole
to.
discussion we've never had.
It's a discussion you've never had.
We've never had that discussion.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
My
Adam,
name is Adam Altman.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I represent Quest Aviation. We were a bidder on this lease. We were not the high bidder, and we were not the next high bidder. We were the third bidder. However, I can tell you that we based our bid on the lease agreement that was provided to us, which specifically says that the purpose of this lease is for renting hangar storage space to the general public. It further says that the tenant, in the conduct of its authorized business activities at the airport, shall furnish good, prompt, and efficient service, and it goes on. And then it says that the tenant shall have all rights and privileges to conduct all business operations authorized under the terms of this lease. That is not a lease for a private aircraft operator. I was given a commercial lease that is referenced in your publication. The successful bidder will be required to execute a municipal hangar lease agreement. A copy of this form is available from the transportation director. That's in your bid. I contacted the transportation director and got a copy of the form, and I was given a commercial lease. You can't then go and award that lease to a non-commercial person. That would be like the hay leases that you just awarded going to me if I said that I wanted to crop that land and not hay that land. You couldn't do that, and you can't do it this way. What you must do is toss all three bids and rebid this project, rebid this lease. With the clear instruction, if you intend to make it available to non-FBOs, to let the world of the universe of non-FBOs who are interested in that know, and let the FBOs know to ensure an even playing field. What we have here is not an even playing field.
Thank you, Adam. Councilman Ronayne has a question for you.
Actually, he answered my question, but I would make a comment since you recognize me. You know, to me, I kind of agree with Adam. I won't vote to approve this. They do need to rebid, and they should open it up to everybody. I don't have any problem with that. But I think that advertisement was misleading, and it would have changed the basis that I would have bid if I was a bidder.
So, Mr. Weger, you had said that, because it was attached, it didn't necessarily refer to that, but it seems like maybe the language in the request for proposal did actually refer to that document?
It refers to the lease, that there is a lease, and the lease is as Adam Altman just said it was. But here's what I want to make clear to the council, is that we're in the process where we're doing what's called a resolution of intent to lease, where the council determines what terms and conditions it will lease city property under. You initially do this, you do a notice, and then you have an opportunity for another public hearing on that. So to me, that's the place where you would consider these things and make your decision ultimately. Legally, you can do this. Legally, you're not bound by the invitation to bid that went out. So I want to make clear, you're not doing anything illegal if you approve this. Okay? Agreed.
Councilman Rife.
Looking at the overview you provided with us, talking about it, and it says the council is not required to accept the highest bid and may take the following actions. Accept Hillstead bid, accept Aberdeen Flag Service bid for FBO use, or reject all bids and re-advertise for bids only for use by an FBO. Could we add a fourth option if we reopen this up and anyone can bid, not just an FBO, and make that clear?
We're not the airport board.
So if we reject all bids, only FBOs at that point can bid? Is that?
No, and you can make that fourth option. You can open it up to the world if you want, and then we'll have to decide whoever's the high bidder, what conditions you want to place on that high bidder. If it's an FBO, fine. If it's a non-FBO, fine. But we just need to make sure that whatever the high bidder takes is allowed under law to take.
Can Councilman Johnson talk about the airport board discussion on this? I'm just curious.
Well, I wanted to ask a question before I might do that. A question to the city attorney. Ron, is there any time pressure for us to act on this? And if we were to, for example, put in place and vote on option 3 to reject all bids and re-advertise for bids, what is the timeline if that were the process?
I don't believe there's any particular timeline that you're under. It's just, as it sits right now, it's just a non-income producing property. So we could hold that out for as long as the council wanted to. It'd go back through to let bids out and then go back to the airport board again. I mean, we're talking 2 months maybe.
I'm sensing more comfort around just the body here, that either to table or to consider number 3. But if, as far as characterizing the conversation that occurred, I guess I would defer to transportation managers to shed some light on that.
Yeah, when we discussed this, it was felt that it's a free market. It was open to all, and the high bidder should get awarded.
Yeah.
And so the real hang-up in this whole thing has been the request for the bids themselves, which referred to this document, which was misleading, like in and of itself, or at least misleading in the intent that we're kind of discussing here. So it's just kind of an oversight or typo, perhaps.
Hindsight being 2020, knowing that somebody expressed interest in it that we weren't expecting, frankly. So. Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, Councilman Lunsman, you have a question?
Again, how long was the bid? I don't remember now, right, that we've been having this discussion. How long was this lease going to be for?
5 years with a 5-year renewal.
So if we were to add option 5, or even not in option, of considering selling this piece of property, how long would that process take?
We would have to surplus it, which is not a lengthy process. And then there is the real property process does take a little bit longer for that, but I would say again 2 to 3 months.
So from the airport's perspective, give us the pros and cons real quick, if you could, Rich, from having an FBO in there or a private operator. Like, what was, I guess, why would an FBO be favorable, I guess, or was that just
From
simply?
my observations, the FBO that had the lease also had contracts with at least FedEx, possibly UPS to store aircraft in the winter.
Councilman Rux, did you have a question?
Well, when is the next airport board meeting? I can't remember if it's the first.
April 8th,
April 8th.
second Thursday, I think it's the 8th.
And you said your board has never discussed just disposing of this.
No.
You know, because like I say, to me, it's just one of those things. Why do we own it? And we keep saying income producing, but for us, it's more of, can we get property taxes off of it and land lease, and then they always pay their, I'm guessing, access charges and all that other stuff. But to me, it's like, I don't even understand why we're talking about continuing to lease something that we should just probably, you know, put out on the market and be done with it. But I don't think if the airport board has considered this, you know, I'd really like their opinion on what they would want. So.
Okay. We can certainly put that on the agenda if that's what the council wants us to do.
So I would move to continue to April 19th. Because that'd be the Monday after the next airport board meeting that we have a meeting.
I second.
I don't know who's talking there, but, so, your motion then, Clint, would, essentially table this discussion, but give some direction to the airport board about the intent?
Because maybe they want the annual revenue. I don't
Sure.
know. But to me, it's, I mean, if it's just sitting there not producing any income anyway.
Well, that's fine, Clint, but are we gonna ever approve this motion? As,
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's the highest bidder. It's what the airport board wants.
Yeah.
I'd be more
okay,
apt to it, but at the same point, if the airport board has never discussed disposing of it, if they come back and say, yeah, we want to be done with this, then we reject all bids and we go to the open market, and all we've done is wait or put out a month.
that's what I thought, yeah.
You know, and that's my thinking right now is basically I'd just like the airport board to consider something they probably haven't considered before. You know, my whole thing is, you know, just like any property around town, if, you know, there's not a reason for us to own this, why should we own it? Why should we continue to lease property? That could be for another purpose.
So, question for Adam, real quick. Would your bid have changed had you known that it would have been, or would your client's bid have changed had you known that it would have been open to other entities aside from the other two FBOs in town?
Absolutely. If we were bidding against 40 people versus 2 people, the bid has to change. You have to take that into consideration.
And Mark, probably would have bid more, you think, if you would have thought other entities were involved, or it's all speculation at this stage in the game, but I'm kind of curious if, to me, it doesn't feel like that may have affected it at all, but maybe it would have.
I would say it would, yes, you know.
Okay, so let's put out a motion.
I had a quick question real fast, sorry.
Councilwoman Langer, what have you got?
If we table this, is that gonna affect anything for the FBOs or people who are bidding? Like if we're pushing this off on the potential sale, or can we do two simultaneously where we decide to rebid and open it and then pursue this option of finding out about selling as well?
Basically, the continuing to the 19th is because the last airport board has already happened. The only way we could get the airport board input in this is if they held a special meeting. And since we don't have meetings the second Mondays of the month, that would push it to April 19th. So basically, nothing would happen until the 19th, until the airport board met to decide what they would want.
I just didn't know if this was holding something up on this in general, or if this was it was okay.
The
we
current
pushed it that
lease,
far.
Counselor, the current lease expires March 31st. So I think Quest is already out of it. So it's basically an empty hangar at this point.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Clint. I think that
Well, if they're already out.
Mr. Kavanaugh just suggested extending it for a couple of months.
I mean, they're still leasing it right now.
It's still an active lease until the end of the month.
So I agree with Clint. I think that, you know, to a large extent, you know, the guy was the high bidder, the airport board moved to approve it, and now we're kind of second guessing their decision and their thoughts on the matter. You know, I mean, we all want to do what the right thing is here, and if it's all just based on a paperwork technicality, maybe that doesn't trump the fact that a man bid for this property and was the successful high bidder. But I guess I'll defer to the rest of the council and see how people feel about that.
I think we want, as a council, to respect the decision that was made by the airport board. We also want to respect the process that occurred where someone produced a high bid. At the same time, I think some questions have been raised where it wouldn't hurt to table this and have a discussion. You know, there's some guidance here. We're tapping the brakes, I think, on a process potentially with a pivot point to consider the sale of the building. I think those conversations could take place by the 19th, and you know, if Councilman Ronayne agrees, perhaps we withdraw our motions and support the idea of tabling for now until the 19th and giving further guidance to the airport board to consider.
It was just a move to continue to the 19th, so basically no motions would have to be withdrawn. Then the agenda would say motion to approve the contract, which may be the way the airport board wants to go. I don't know.
Sure.
So, Mr. Hill said, his hand raised. Why don't you make your way to the podium? I'd be interested to hear your input here real quick.
Hi, I'm Darrell Hillstead. I'm the one that got the bid on it. My question is you decide not to sell it. Are you gonna give it to me, or are you gonna rebid it, or what's the process there? And then also, if you decide to sell it, are you gonna sell it to private owners or just FBOs?
My understanding was that it was going to the value was going to go back to the airport board to make some of those determinations. Was that your intent, Clint?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically I want to hear what they say because, like I say, I mean, if it's a purchase, then there's only so many ways we can get rid of it, either through sealed bid, public auction, or through a realtor, you know, those types of things. But that would be up to the airport board because, like I say, this is airport property controlled by them. I'm just basically saying let's review the options. Let the airport board review the options, and then we'll go from there. So it's possible on the 19th it could be awarded to you, or they could come back and say we just want to sell it, and then that starts a whole different process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've got a motion to defer this to, you said, Clint, we don't even need to vote on it?
April 19th.
April
Well, we
19th.
need to vote on to continue it, but we don't need to vote on the motion.
Understood. I need a second on that vote, on that motion, rather.
Ronayne made the second.
Councilmember Remley made the second on that.
Oh, Councilman Remley did?
Remley did.
Okay, so we've got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Remley to table this issue until the April 19th meeting, with the understanding that it would be a discussion to be had at the April 8th Airport Board meeting to consider these bids, as well as the opportunity to sell this property to a bidder, and then perhaps to open this bid up more transparently to all bidders and not just FBOs. Does anyone else have anything to contribute to this conversation? Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. We will table this issue and bring it back up on April 19th with further feedback from the airports board. Rich, thank you for joining us here tonight, and other gentlemen, appreciate it. Next, we've got the resolution to submit an application for a land and water grant for the purpose of constructing a playground at the Kunert Arboretum. This would be a possible approval of that resolution. Here to speak about that, No, it's that. No, it's Mark Hoven. You're ahead of me a little bit. Mark, what have you got? Tell us all about that.
And this is the Land and Water Conservation Grant. This is 2022 money. We're applying for, the grants are open. The Arboretum is, has a place there in their children's garden for a playground. And so we're gonna try to get that funded. It'll hit well, I think, on the grant program because it's a new construction going in. It'll be more of a natural playground that we're gonna put down there, that we'll use and try to draw more people into the Arboretum area. It's 50-50 money, so the city's gotta provide 50% of the money and then, the other money will come out of there. It's the same fund that we did the, inclusive playground out of Storybook Land that'll be built this summer, so, just need a resolution to support it from the council.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Mark, are those real stones then, or are those pretend
No, they're
stones?
not real stones, no.
I was gonna say that could be a little dangerous. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote if no one else has any questions for Mark on this?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the hearing on the new retail on-sale liquor restaurant license and new retail on-off-sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for Stacy J. Gossman, doing business as Scotty's at 719 North Main Street. So this would be a possible approval for that license.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Rife. Anybody have anything to say? Otherwise, we'll be all glad to see Scotty's reopen, I think, up there. Too few restaurants on the north side. Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval to approve appropriation from the PEG Fund to the Aberdeen School District for equipment purchases. This would be an appropriation in the amount of $50,796 to purchase some equipment. Joe was going to tell us about that. Mr. Gaa, what have you got?
Yes, thank you. This is, for many years, the city has a public educational channel. The school district has run it. There have been some changes in staffing this year, and we knew that was coming, and this was kind of a year to wait and see what happened. I've had several meetings with the school. They want to keep operating it. They're doing some really neat improvements. If you're bored at night and you end up on the public educational channel, you see all these students dressed up doing broadcasts from the gymnasium. And so one of the things is to complete a set for that. They're also reaching out, doing more community interviews, and part of the equipment is for that, so that they have the portable things and to cover more of those types of things. This is something I've discussed with you, a little bit of an overall communications plan, and I think this is the right way to go on operating the channel, and we'll continue to talk about some other things communication-wise and maybe expanding that, the reach of those broadcasts in the future. But for now, we recommend this approval.
Moved. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Rife. Anyone have any questions?
The equipment will be city-owned? Or are we going to transfer?
This is money we're giving to the school to purchase the equipment. They will own it.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Carl, would you give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. And I will say that the Eric Schaffhauser, who is the new director of that program over at the high school, does a heck of a good job, and he was quite a long time Kelloland reporter here. So good relevant experience to be transferring to these children. Next, we've got the request to purchase a Stryker power load unit and new cot for $40,096.63 from Stryker Medical, as well as a transport ventilator for $6,153.17 from Henry Schein for the fire department. And this would be a possible approval for those purchases. And we've got Mr. Weig here to tell us about that. What have you got, Mr. Weig?
Yeah, good evening. This equipment is going to be an upgrade to our current ambulance, one of the current ambulances. So the equipment they're replacing is approximately 10 years old. And the ventilator that we're talking about is going to be a new purchase for our second out ambulance. So both of our ambulances will have the same exact equipment on them. And by a ventilator, it's just what you think. It helps a person breathe. It's what you would get if you were in the ER or a hospital bed. That's the equipment we're looking to purchase. These were budgeted for in the capital equipment outlay. We are also receiving a South Dakota Municipal League 2021 Striker Grant in the amount of $3,300.30, and this will be used to offset the cost of that equipment.
Thank you, Chief.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilman Rux. Any questions for the chief while he's here? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the request from the fire department to declare 6 sets of bunker gear and helmets surplus property for disposal. And Chief Joel, what have you got on those?
Yeah, this equipment, this is a process we do every year. This equipment has exceeded its 10-year service life according to NFPA 1851. It no longer has any value for sale or donation, and since it's beyond that service date, we can't give it to another department to use. If we declare this, it will. But the NFPA 1851 says it has to be disposed of. So in other words, it'll be dismantled and thrown in the dumpster. That's the request for this. And like I said, this is something that's done annually. And it's part of our annual cycle of making sure our firefighters have the proper equipment to wear. And we do this on an annual budgetary basis, so we'll replace half a dozen pieces of bunker gear every year.
Thank you, Chief. Take a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rife and a second from Councilman Lunsman. I have to admit, when I first saw that we're getting rid of our bunker gear and helmets, I thought maybe our zombie threat level was depreciating. But I guess no such luck. Carl, would you give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you for joining us
Thank
here
you.
tonight, Chief. Next, we got the recommendation on bids for 3rd Avenue Southeast Street reconstruction. Possible approval to award the bid to B&B Contracting in the amount of $705,830.67 and to authorize all the documents to be signed as appropriate. And Robin, what can you tell us about that street work?
Okay, this is the project going from State Street to Dakota Street. Ironically, St. Luke's is doing some work on some of their buildings, so it was not planned out this way, but it's working out well that we can take care of a lot of the infrastructure at the same time that they're taking some of the buildings down, and it'll help us improve that area a great deal. The road, all the pipes and everything have been in tough shape for a while, and the complications with a couple tunnels really has made it challenging, but we decided it was time. The low bid is from B&B, and we recommend approval of that bid.
Move approval.
Second.
And a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Lunsman. So I tell you, I've gotten a heck of a lot of questions about that walkway in that building. No one in the community really wants to see that thing go, but I guess it's unserviceable at this stage in the game, so may as well come down. And we'll blame it on you.
That is not in the control of our department, so there's a lot of opinions, I agree.
Sounds good. Got a motion or a second. Any questions for Robin on the project itself? Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the recommendation on bids for the North Dakota Street roadway improvements. Possible approval and to award the bid to Reedy Construction for $1,637,805.70 and to authorize all those documents to be signed. Robin, tell us about that project.
Last year, we did the project from 15th Avenue up to Fairgrounds Road. This year, the project is from 8th Avenue to 15th. This one's slightly longer because we are including the intersection plus all the way down to 8th Avenue. I believe last year's project was about 1.5 million. We have seen some increases in cost, but we had, I believe, 5 bidders on this, and it was very competitive. The bid from Reedy's was very competitive, so we recommend approval of that project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Rux, and we've got a question from Councilman Rux.
Couple questions on this. School, because a lot of parents drop their children off on Dakota Street. Have we worked anything with planning to make sure that type of section maybe is done before school starts?
The project is scheduled to start after school ends in May and be completed by August when school is starting. So yes, that is in the bid documents.
Yeah. And this will have the machine paving?
This will the award contemplates slip forming, so that will be full machine placed. Yes.
Okay.
Will this include the intersection of 8th Avenue?
It will not go into 8th Avenue.
Okay.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote for that recommendation and payment.
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the financial closeout report for the AIP 3-46-001-42-2020 Airport Mobile Test Cart for the ARF vehicle. Possible approval to authorize the city manager to sign that financial closeout report. Rich, you're back.
Yep, I'm back. So we're at the point where we need to close this project out. I've spoken with you a few times on the ARF cart. Specifically what that is for calibrating the foam proportioner on each of the aircraft rescue firefighting trucks without actually discharging foam. So this was a 100% fully funded grant, and we've got our ARF cart. Everything's calibrated, everything's signed off. We just need the city manager for the final signature.
Moved. Move to approve.
The motion from Johnson. I'll give the second to Reinbold there, also motion. Any questions for Rich on this closeout paperwork? Otherwise, Carl, roll call.
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the request to purchase 2 JD 6125R leased tractors from John Deere for the airport. Possible approval to purchase those 2 from the matured lease for the amount of $73,435 to Deere Credit Incorporated. Rich, what can you tell us about those tractors?
Yep, we had a couple of 1989 tractors, and in 2015, we were able to procure from John Deere 2 tractors that had returned from 1-year leases with the county. So they gave us pretty good lease pricing on those, and with a 5-year option to buy. So those tractors are doing well for us. We like them. We want to keep them for another 10 or 15 years.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Ronayne. Any questions about the purchase of these 2 off-lease vehicles? Carl, roll call vote for that, please.
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the payment request for the airport improvement projects. Start with payment 9, taxiway C reconstruction, $110,395.15. Payment 29, taxiway C project to Helms and Associates, $1,185.31. Payment 16 for the taxiway geometry project Helms for $23.60.52. Payment number 4 for the apron project to Helms and Associates for $8,830.09. And this approval would be to authorize to sign the payment request for all of these payments. Rich, what can you tell us about all 4 of these?
Okay, so for payment number 9, $110,395.15. That is the final payment on this project. We are still holding back $10,000 just to get make sure the contractor comes back and touches up some paint and finishes some seating. That didn't get done last fall. Payment number 29 is for engineering services and project monitoring. And that's to Helms for $1,185.31. Payment number 16 to Helms and Associates for $2,360.52 is for design work on taxiway geometry. And payment number 4 to Helms and Associates is for design work on the GA apron project coming up.
Move to approve all 4.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Lunsman. Any questions for Rich? If anyone's thinking about buying an airport, keep in mind that they're very expensive on an ongoing basis from the looks
And
of
very
things.
well maintained.
Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight, Rich.
Thank you.
Next, we've got the review and approval of claims and payroll, the bills, approval in the bill list for March 15th, and the payroll along with the city's share of Social Security, old age, survivors insurance, retirement, health, and life insurance for the period of February 28th through March 13th. And then there's a new disclaimer that's recently been added that indicates that council members may abstain regarding an identified claim in the bill list or payroll and vote to approve the remainder of the bills or payroll. So if that affects anyone, please take note. Can I get a motion to pay these bills and payments?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion from Rux, second from Ronayne. Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schaunaman.
Aye, motion does carry. And before we kick over to the city manager's report, I definitely want to congratulate Councilwoman Tiffany Langer on the birth of 2 little ones. And I can't believe you're here to be a part of this meeting such short time afterwards. Vivian and Kaysen, how are things going for you?
Things are great. I know I'm in a different background because I'm in Sioux Falls right now. So they're in the NICU, but things are going wonderful. And I mean, I'm pretty dedicated to this job, so I wouldn't have missed a meeting.
I have every confidence you'll have the energy to keep up with 2 children at once. Joe, what have you got for us for a city manager's report?
I have to add on to yours. Also, she was at a 4:00 committee meeting. I asked a couple of council members to join in on some comments on some things I'm working on. So she was here for that too. So it's usually I like to give recognition to employees, but yes, the Councilwoman Langer is a superhero this week, I think, in my mind. So.
Hey, I got discharged at 3 o'clock. I had a whole hour.
So just one last thing that I have, and we've been getting asked about this a lot, this is the vaccination process. So this is a process that is coming through the state level. The state gets the allocations, and then they allocate it based on counties to the healthcare providers. So both Avera and Sanford have been administering the vaccine. Right now, and this is coming from a meeting on Friday, so right now they're on that priority level of 1D 1E will quickly follow. They anticipate being there and complete with those groups around mid-April. Everything's gone very well. They have capacity for more. They're having no problem administering their doses. And at this point in time, the way we understand it is the state is not inclined at this point yet, based on the doses they've received, to start doing any sort of pod, large-scale involvement exercises. So the hospitals are going to keep doing what they're doing. There are some additional allocations starting to be made to the pharmacies to expand that. So the discussion from that group the other day is there's capacity in the hospital setups in administering their virus, the vaccine, to keep doing this. And unless there's a big allocation of vaccines to the county and to the state, that won't change at this point in time. So we've been getting asked about details of large-scale events, and as of right now, there are no such details. But again, they're moving through the priority groups. They're very pleased with how things have gone, and they're looking forward to expanding that very soon.
And as a follow-up to that, I will say we've kind of been keeping an eye on those numbers, and we're pretty much in line with the other places throughout the state. So there'd be no reason to think that we need to hurry up to keep in tow with anyone else or anything like that. I think we're doing a great job in our house. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Johnson, second from Ronayne. Carl, final roll call vote of the night, please.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife.
Aye. Motion does carry. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.